Hey everyone, welcome back to Diving into Mobility. We are at a part 2 of our Peplink series. Again, still my 35th birthday, hanging out with my two favorite dudes from Get Wireless. As you saw before, we addressed the BR1 Mini lineup with the Cat 4, Cat 7, 5G, all with or without Wi-Fi, its capabilities, what it can't do, use cases. We are going to center today's conversation on the MAX BR1 Pro 5G, which is here, right? Beautiful, beautiful device. You know, we'll put some shining stars above it. But probably my most go-to device for 5G sites, whether it's a primary connection, a backup connection, if they need to tie it in with a firewall, whether we're utilizing hot failover or SpeedFusion. Mike and Miles from Get Wireless, Peplink's largest distributor in the country. They're going to be highlighting a lot of the benefits, a lot of what it can't do, use case. And again, as before, leave any feedback, comments, questions for us in the comments. Mike, I'll let you start us off, and then we'll go from there.
All right, I'm going to share my screen real quick because we can talk about the image. This way everyone can see it. It was a little harder on the BR1 just because there's so many different variations. But with this one, there are two. There's a 4G and a 5G, but really no one buys the 4G one. Everyone kind of goes to this 5G. This device by far is one of my favorite devices within Peplink. It's so versatile. High throughput, one SIM card. You can actually put two SIM cards in here, but one SIM card is active. You can have a second WAN in the WAN port. I talked about on the BR1 Mini how the WAN port is not active out of the box unless you have a PrimeCare subscription or the license. This one, there is a dedicated WAN port, Ethernet WAN port. It also has Wi-Fi WAN. So for bonding on this one can handle it. This is a full gigabit throughput router. When you turn SpeedFusion on, and in our next session we'll kind of dive into this one a little bit, the throughput does go to about 400 megs of throughput. But if you're going to bond a 100 meg Verizon line with Starlink or a cable connection, like a 50 meg or 100 meg cable connection, this is a perfect device for that. It actually increase that throughput. It's also going to give you a much better internet connection. We kind of talked a little bit the difference between bonding and hot failover. This device for hot failover is perfect. This device, I definitely use it for hot failover. It has a lot of upgraded specs over the BR1 Mini. This one has Wi-Fi 6 compared to Wi-Fi 5. It is ruggedized, so it has the same temperature specs as the BR1 series, right? -50 all the way up to 150 degrees Fahrenheit for the customers in Canada. I'm sorry, I can't do that calculation in my head that fast, but it's up there for Celsius. There's a lot of customers, or there's a lot of other manufacturers out there that make cases for this one. Parsec makes the Boxer case specifically made for the BR1. Peplink has another one called the Antenna Max. Dillon, I think you have that as well. Right? This is the Parsec device. It's a portable, it's a suitcase. You can use it as a second carry-on a plane. The Antenna Max that Dillon is showing you there, that one's great for your fixed wireless access because you can mount it on the roof and then you have very low loss in the signal strength. Again, both cases are great. Different use cases. Parsec is portable. The Antenna Max is more of a fixed application. This is going through a hardware design. So there's actually two versions of the BR1 Pro 5G, and the SKU is the differentiator. The one we're looking at here is the BR1 Pro 5G N. Now they have a BR1 Pro 5G K. So the K is the exact same price as the N, but it adds more stuff. Edge computing, so if you need to do Docker container, you can do that on the BR1 Pro 5G K. If you want to do power over Ethernet, you can do that on there as well. If you want to provide power over Ethernet to this one, there's an accessory called the Splitter Max that you would need to get. But now the other variant of it, the 5G-K, is out there as well. And there's another big difference between the two. The 5G-N uses a QuickTel cellular module, and there's a lot of controversy about that module out there. Is it Chinese? Is it not Chinese? Or where does it come from? The 5G-K uses a different chipset that is not QuickTel, so it uses a Telit module. This is PoE in, so I can power the router via PoE, right? So if you take your Antenna Max you just had.
Yep.
Now you put this in it, you have to power that somehow. Instead of having a separate power cable and an Ethernet cable, you just have an Ethernet cable and it can power it, and then you can always do data transmission.
Okay, so still use a PoE injector for access points.
Correct. Yep.
Can the BR1 Mini 5G also be powered by PoE?
Yep, that one came standard with it.
That's awesome. So I need to make sure we start ordering the K.
Yeah, that's new.
There you go.
Mike,
we have them in stock.
When is that coming out?
We have them in stock right now. So it's going to be a little bit, adds a half an inch to the length. Really, it's not that big of a deal. The other question I get when I talk about that is the holes you see on the screen, the holes on the side of it for mounting. Those do not change even though the device gets a little bit longer, but the holes stay the same. So for customers that are really already buying the BR1 Pro 5G, it's not a big deal. The 5GK just adds a little bit of length.
No, that's awesome. I like the PoE and the Telet module, and you said one other big factor?
Yeah, so this does edge computing, so like Docker containers. You want to run an application locally in the device, and you don't want to have it communicate back and forth to the cloud. You can have that on this device now. A lot of Peplink devices support edge computing. Normally they were the higher end devices. They started with the Transit and then went up from there. This is the first one that got edge computing in that entry level type device. There's a way you can add it on to a B1, but you got to use the USB port, so it's not internal. This is the first one with the internal capabilities of it.
Seen instances where we do the B1 5G, which obviously is dual WAN, which for my semi-technical brain doesn't mean a lot. But since we're digging into the Pro versus others, what may be the big differences between the BR1 Pro 5G that we see here, the K model, versus the B1 5G?
Yeah, so the B1 5G, the biggest thing is it's not rugged, right? It doesn't have that same temperature capabilities. So it's a plastic enclosure compared to a metal enclosure here.
Indoors. A lot of indoors only is the idea for the B1.
Fixed wireless access. If you're going to put that in an office building, if you're just going to do small office, home office, or if you're going to do a branch location, doesn't need to be ruggedized. But if you're going to put this in a vehicle, or if it needs to be in a temperature controlled area, you're going to want to go with a BR1 Pro 5G. Specs on the B1 compared to the BR1 Pro are the same, except for what you brought up. On the B1, there's 2 Ethernet WAN ports. So that means you can have 2 Starlink dishes connected to that, plus have cellular in the back, or you could have a wired Starlink and cellular, or, all sorts of different combinations.
Yep.
This one's meant to be mobile. This one's meant to be, kind of that.
So we could really be the B1 5G in our space a lot more than we are. The use case we had in Arizona was a HD1 dome, which is very similar to as the Antenna Max, a Starlink that the customer had, and a Verizon Cellular. So we took all 3 connections, brought them into the B1 5G, and bonded them together. Idea takes on that, Mike?
I think that's a great setup. You're seeing Starlink mini dishes mounted on top of vehicles. Well, if you drive under something, you're not going to have Starlink anymore. Pairing it with this, like a Verizon SIM card, perfect, right? Because then you can do hot failover from satellite to cellular back up to satellite. Starlink changed their plans, so they don't give you a true unlimited plan anymore. Once you hit your priority data, they slow you down to really slow throughput. You could do load balancing on this as well. You can say, hey, when Starlink hits this many, megs or gigs or whatever, fall back over to the Verizon SIM card.
Mike, that setup with having the second SIM there, it's not active. So in this architecture we're talking about with Starlink and your cable internet or whatever, would you see downtime with your...
In both those, they're both active at the same time.
Right.
2 Verizon SIMs in there, so only one SIM is active. You wouldn't see that big of a downtime when you're going from SIM A to SIM B, as long as they're the same SIM cards.
What happens with other routers, Mike? What happens in another scenario when you don't have the SpeedFusion and you don't have the WAN smoothing and the bonding? Another router, how long would that take you to spin down and spin back up?
We got to talk about how many things are active at the time, right? So if I have Verizon, let's say Verizon's my primary, it's in SIM A, right? And then I put another carrier in SIM B, that's where you're going to have a long downtime. It could be anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes because it's got to spin down the Verizon network settings and then re-spin up the next carrier settings. But if it's going to go from an Ethernet WAN connection to the cellular, that's pretty instant. The big thing, though, is it's a drop-in session. So if we're on like this call right here and that happened, I would get kicked out and I'd have to reconnect back in. But with SpeedFusion hot failover, I didn't even notice that it went from my primary to my secondary WAN connection.
Yep.
So that's
I think what Miles said there for a second is, say another OEM device, right? A basic, take your pick back there, right? Say it's dual SIM, right? What's the timeline? What's the latency? What's the drop, even though it has dual SIM, of it being configured to go from SIM 1 to SIM 2?
That just depends on the components in that router. I can't speak for the other manufacturers.
Yeah, but generally between 30 seconds and 5 minutes.
30 seconds to up to 5 minutes is safe to say, especially when it has to spin down its current network and spin up a whole nother network.
And that would even be in place for a customer that has, say they've got AT&T or Spectrum, CenturyLink, Cox, whatever.
Sure.
And it's cabled into the Peplink and the WAN port, and then, correct me if I'm wrong on the configuration, but if it was connected to another device, say even a Verizon device or a basic cellular router, will the customer have to manually get that configured?
In some cases, depends on the manufacturer.
With us, you'll never notice.
Yep.
And then when the primary, say Cox, turns back on, construction's over, internet's back up, does it automatically know, hey, go back to Cox?
So basically what it's going to do is when it switches from primary to secondary, it's going to stay on that secondary until you tell it to go back to that primary. That's standard across manufacturers. With hot failover, it will go back to your primary. So you can keep it on the secondary if you want. With SpeedFusion, it's automatically set up to go back to the primary.
Okay. Mike, can you pull up that B1 5G just so everybody can see, and I'll make sure that gets shared?
Are you seeing my screen right now? So here's a picture of it. The B1 5G.
B1, awesome device here. We've used it a few times, and it's usually the go-to is the BR1 Pro. Yeah. But I think knowing, especially and then we're going to address it coming up, but SpeedFusion and bonding connections, knowing that, hey, we can put 2 outdoor adapters outside. We can bring that into a third connection inside. As long as we know that that's the hardware needed, I think this is going to start flying off the shelves. I don't know how much this is utilized in y'all's world compared to the BR1 Pro 5G.
Those things, Dillon, like you're saying, for so long it's just been the BR1 Mini and the BR1 Pro. And so this isn't a new device. The exact realization that you're thinking about right now is happening quite often around the country. It's a good topic.
Actually, you can add a lot of WAN ports to this, right? So I have the 2 Ethernet WANs, but I can also use Wi-Fi as a WAN. So if there's a Wi-Fi signal out there, I can connect to it, use that as a WAN port. And there's also this USB-C port right in the front. Mm-hmm. I can take a USB cellular radio dongle or whatever and connect it into that as well. There's another cellular WAN port, plus it has a cell radio built in. So you can really add a lot of WAN connections to this.
Mike, and do keep in mind that PrimeCare Plus. Like, guys, this is allowing you to have direct support from Peplink, advanced replacement if a device has an issue, to where you're not always having to reach out to our router support. You're able to reach out directly.
And Dillon, that's a good one right there. Why CTS and why get wireless? The level of support between you guys doing your tier 1 stuff and using us for tier 2 is huge. But having this PrimeCare Plus it's a text-based support feature. I mean, if it's after hours, and I know that's not so much the case for you guys if you have your 24/7, but Get Wireless is 8x5 Monday through Friday, which is currently an issue, right? If you have an issue at 5:30 p.m. on a Friday, what do you do? Who do you call? And again, in this case, you already have it figured out, but for the masses, a lot of the resellers we work with don't have 24/7, right? It's just a thing. So this PrimeCare Plus is huge. And Mike, I was going to say, I haven't seen this before, but on the website, having that total cost of ownership line item is pretty cool.
Yeah, they did this. This is actually a 3-year option on this one, where it'll come with the device plus 3-year hardware warranty, 3-year uncontrolled access support. I wanted to point out was this TAA compliant. Actually, all the SKUs are TAA compliant. It doesn't matter if they're US SKUs or non-US SKUs. They're all TAA compliant.
All these topics, right? Customers are going to be like, well, that sounds great. Who's going to do it? And some of it may fall on us, but also we want to dig into, can some of that be purchased through Get Wireless? Can we have basically configuration support? Because that's what a lot of customers don't understand. Yes, we kind of do put a lot of this on you guys because we don't know your infrastructure. But if they are able to, from Get Wireless, from Peplink, do direct support and help with configuration outside of CTS, I know that's been a hot topic as well. So Coming up on time for this one, just flying by. These guys just educate me all day. We'll be back the next one for a review on SpeedFusion. What is it? Why has it got a cool name like something off Star Trek? We'll see you on the next one.